Oh, here it is. Right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A, which looks like we are having some slowdown issues. Ugh. Well, I guess we've done pretty well with the stream, but now we're back to this rubbish of broken down streams. We will try to compensate for this. How's it going? Welcome back to the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of coffee Q&A here on the onocoffee channel. I'm Jay, your host, and if you're not just joining for the very first time, we do this live stream most Monday through Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern time, where we talk about coffee. And today we're talking about a coffee from Yemen, and this particular one is called the Northern Crown from the Khulani district, and it's a natural process coffee, 1,400 to 2,500 meters above sea level. And it is a blend of Audani, Daweri, and Tufahi varietals of coffee, which are interesting because I never really hear about these kind of varietals outside of Yemen or the Middle East, really. Kioni, aloha to you. Kent, Haleb, how are you? Mums, good morning. Andrew, half a day as well. So this is the Northern Crown. Now, this is all part of a series of coffees that we were giving as a tasting on an introduction to the different coffees that I was lecturing at McDaniel College in Westminster, Maryland, last 2 weekends ago. This is the final and fourth one of that series, and it is it's an interesting coffee. So here's the thing about Yemeni coffee. Yemeni coffee is somewhat difficult to get, meaning that it's coffee production in Yemen. So let's rewind a little bit. Yemen used to be a very high producing country and was the center at the port of Mocha, was the center of the coffee trade for centuries, especially during the reign of the Ottoman Empire. And it was the Ottomans that controlled distribution of coffee throughout the world, and trading with other countries. But, other countries wanted to, take control of coffee and make their own fortunes out of it, grow their own coffees in their own colonies, right, in their own tropical region areas. And so in order to combat this, the Ottoman Turks would require that the coffee somehow be treated so that they could not germinate. So sometimes it'd be partially roasted, maybe even boiled with water, or some kind of methodology that would prevent someone from germinating those seeds, the beans, and creating their own crops. Now, what evidently happened was that Dutch traders along the way were like, we need to make money for ourselves and we need to enrich ourselves, and and these Middle Eastern guys aren't worth the effort. So let's steal some coffee. So they were able to steal a bunch of coffee from the Ottoman Turks and then, take it to their colonies. Like, for example, this is kind of how coffee began cultivation in Indonesia, is because of Dutch colonies there. And so that's kind of the beginning of the spread of coffee throughout the world outside of the Ottoman Empire. And, so be whatever you may consider it, it could be like piracy, or you could be thinking that, this is the benefit of humanity, or the spread of coffee beyond the Middle East. Now, in Yemen, the production has been, of course, going on for centuries, and it's interesting because you see, this is a natural process coffee, right? So this natural processing coffee. Good morning to you, Russell. Is how they really do it in the Middle East, right? So what is natural processing? Natural processing is when they take the ripe cherries of the coffee, which are turning red and crimson, and they're harvesting them, and then what they do is they dry them. Typically in this part of the world, they're drying them what's called raised beds. So they've got this mesh bed, they basically got a big tray that's made of wood that has some kind of woven mesh, like a nylon mesh or something like that. And that allows the coffee to sit on the mesh and dry from all sides, right? From the top and the bottom. And then about hourly, they will rake the coffees because, it's kind of piled up. So they're raking them to get continuous exposure to all sides of the coffee. And, so that the coffees that are stacked on top of each other can move and get better exposure to air. And greater exposure to sun, and this allows it to dry. This will take about 21 days in typical conditions for the coffee to dry fully. And so we're talking about fully moistured coffee, probably about 40% of moisture content. And you want to bring it down to about 10% or so, and that takes about 21 days under the sun. From here, the coffees are stored. So a lot of countries will take their coffees, like especially in Central America, they'll take their coffees and put them in Central America, what's called en reposado, which means they're resting them. They're putting them into warehouses. In the case of like Central America, where they're doing a lot of wash processing, after they've dehulled the coffee, dried it, they'll bring it to the same moisture content, and then they'll also put them back into sacks, and they'll put them into warehouses where they'll sit for like 30 days and just kind of allowed to mature. Right? During this phase in Central America, the coffee has a covering, a parchment that actually, as the bean dries, the parchment, and the bean dries and shrinks, the parchment doesn't really shrink, right? So they get this parchment paper that's coating it that wasn't really apparent when it was still fresh out of processing. They will leave the coffee in what they call en pergamino, in the parchment, for about 30 days or so, just to age and get better, and then before they actually dry mill it and then ship it to the end users. In Yemen, they do something similar, where after the coffee has fully dried, they will take those dried beans, or the whole cherries, the dried cherries, and they will put those into storage in underground caves. Well, it sounds more dramatic, but this is not exactly the most wealthiest of countries, and they don't have a lot of flat land, because a lot of this is happening in the mountainous regions of the country. It's a very rocky and dry kind of country. So they have caves. So they put them in the caves in the mountains, and they let them sit there. But unlike Central America, where they're like, maybe 30 days or so, in Yemen, they can be there for years. And when the coffee is not, let's say, what was harvested in March and then allowed to sit for the last few months, it's with the coffee that has been there however long it's been there. Like maybe they have so much crop and it's just been sitting around, and you're getting the coffee and now you're ordering it, and you're buying from them and they're sending it to you, and maybe it's a year or two old in the dried cherry. So it gives a different complexity and different characteristic to the coffee. Anton, how's it going? Power plant, good morning to you as well. Maybe getting some unique. Ooh, I thought you don't like those fermentation ones. So once those, and the thing about the Yemen coffee is that it's not typically, when you're a buyer to Yemen, and I'm not a buyer to Yemen, if I'm buying it, it's going to be through sources probably like the Coffee Bean Corral or Sweet Maria's or some other group, Mokhtar Al-Kanshi, maybe, to buy the Yemeni coffee, because you just don't know how to navigate that. It's a very, from everyone that I talked to, it's a very steep learning curve and rather difficult terrain, both in terms of actual physical terrain, cultural terrain, and safety terrain, war zone. It's a war zone at times. It's kidnappings at times. So there's a lot of factors at play that make trying to go to Yemen to meet farmers to buy coffee from the farm very, very complex. Complex is probably the best way to work. So a lot of the coffee is put together by co-ops, because and as in most parts of the world, a lot of the coffee is grown by small plot farmers, typically relatively low income, poor families that are making coffee as their living. They've got maybe 1 or 2 hectares of coffee to produce, and they produce some coffees, and then they sell them to the middlemen, right? To the guys that are going to cut them. And perhaps in Mexico and Latin America, what's called the coyotes, who will go to the farms and buy the cherries from the farmers. And then they take those cherries and bring them to like a cooperative or a larger mill, where they put them all together and create the coffee. So like this Khulani will be sorted. Typically, this is sorted by the region, right? So Khulani, Northern Crown. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by Northern Crown. Let me look this up here and see what specifically they mean. So it's the Sa'ada Governorate, which is I think it's southwest of Sana'a. And let's see here. Oh yeah, so small legacy farmers within the Khulani Coffee Society for Agricultural Development, which is KCSAD, a grower coalition spanning across Sa'ada. The coalition focuses on advancing farm investments and quality standards throughout the harvest and post-harvest processes. I'm reading this from the Coffee Corral's website. Yemen holds the distinction of being the Earth's first coffee cultivation territory. Okay, that's fine. These coffee-growing families maintain ancestral terraced lands. Okay, so they're on terraced lands where coffee remains both an economic lifeline and a binding social tradition. Khulani designates premium heirloom coffee varieties grown in Yemen's northern ranges, processed naturally through careful hand-picking, sorting, and sun-drying on raised beds or rooftops. Despite Yemen's ongoing civil conflict, the coffee community continues to produce some of the most sought-after coffees in the world. Their mission focuses on increasing both coffee quality available. Okay, that's fine. Really, I want to know more about like what in the world are they? How difficult is it to get the coffee? But so this is a coffee that's supposed to have. Let's see, what are they saying? They're supposed to have flavor notes of cocoa, earthy, light fruit, medium body, caramelized banana, dark chocolate, fresh, smooth, and pleasant herbal notes. Now, that's great. One of the things to bear in mind is I think we touched on this before, is that as you think about flavor notes of coffees, for coffees that you're considering, don't put too much reliance upon that, because like for example, this cupping note that I just read, there's no date on it. Who knows when it was written, right? Who knows how large of a lot they originally bought that they made that from? And as coffee ages, it changes, or it can change. So you may not necessarily get all, and the way you roast it is going to have another impact on the way that the coffee presents itself. Plus, and this is part of the reason why I think that coffee, like even though we make correlations with wine, I think coffee is so much more difficult to do because you have so many steps. Like wine, I mean, other than proper decanting of older wines and blah, 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 blah. But you basically, with wine, you pour and you're done. And you can as long as that wine was not held in extreme conditions, you should be able to expect relative similar results to the tasting notes. Whereas in coffee, who knows how they roasted it? Who knows how they brewed it, right? And God knows if you make a mistake in your brewing or brew it a different way, it's going to have a different effect on the flavor profile of the coffee. So don't get too hung up on cupping notes or tasting notes. And especially don't get too hung up on it if what you're tasting doesn't match the notes. Because it could have been 6 months ago that they wrote these notes. Remember, they have to, especially on labeling, they have to print it out. That takes time. Obi-Wan Kenobi's with us. Good morning to you as well. Anton says, I had a nice Ethiopian blueberry natural last month. Ooh. I have a coffee coming up that I think we're going to do maybe on Friday that I'm kind of excited about for us to try. Power Plant says, has anyone had an Eritrean coffee? I have not. I wasn't really even sure if they made coffee in Eritrea. I mean, it would make sense because they are neighbors. Power Plant says, seems like it should be a thing. It should. I think it should. Kenny says, I just got a new issue of Standard. Interesting article about coffee in Kyoto. I like the samples they sent, 50-gram packets. This issue had a Spanish company sale, beans roasted by De Origin. Oh, nice. That's the problem when you let's say you don't go somewhere and you have to go there. You're there's so many coffee shops that open, and you're like, oh, how would I catch up? It's so difficult. Anton says, yes, the sample is nice. I like those intensely fermented geishas. Oh, interesting. Ken says, I have 2 Yemen coffees in my freezer, both naturals. The most expensive of them is very good. Both were very, very good. Both were pricey. Yeah, pricey. This is a good. So if we look at Coffee Bean Corral, right? So Coffee Bean Corral, this coffee, Northern Khulani. Here it is, starting as low as $18.15. So this is our cost right here. Our cost here is $18.15. And that's if you buy it at the 50-pound bag. If you're buying it, let's say a 5-pound bag, it's $18.60. I mean, not the question here is that am I going to buy 5 pounds or 50 pounds? What will I do with 50 pounds? Even though, and you're saving 45 cents. But is that really a savings if you only need a little bit? Now, if you buy the half bag sample, it jumps to $26.46. So that's a little bit too pricey. Yeah, Paige says, wow, that's pricey. Yeah, it's pricey coffee. It's pricey coffee. But, we're not skimping on, your experience. Maku's with us. What's going on, Maku? How are you? Powerplant says, that's the problem we buy from Yemen when you can get stuff that is good from closer countries. Well, yes. And here, and what you say is definitely something that comes up with buyers, and I think much more frequently than industry people would ever like to admit. But I have sat in discussions with friends who are green buyers in countries. I recall one time very specifically, and I know I've related this story to you, but I think it's a hallmark of the complexities of buying coffee. Like we're in a country, we're in El Salvador. We're staying at a farmer, at a producer's house. No, we're actually staying at the Beneficio. We were staying at the Beneficio, the place where they process the coffee. Oh no, we were staying at the house. Anyway, whatever the case may be, we're staying at the house, and we're all outside one night. It's nighttime. We're just talking about and when you're with coffee people, invariably the conversation goes back to the coffee, and so we're talking about the coffees that we tasted that day. And one of them was like an 83 or 84 point coffee. That was the asking price was $2.35 a pound, which in modern times today, 2025, that'd be like, whoa, this is like about 10 years ago. And one of the guys was like, I don't know, man. Like I can go. He's like, I don't know if it's worth it because I could fly to Colombia tomorrow and buy similar quality coffee, 83, 84 point coffee for $1.90 all day long. And I was like, well, yeah, but but for me, it's like, I didn't really engage too deep into it because I'm just like, well, it's your coffee program. You have to run it the way you see fit. But to my mind, it's like, we have established relations with this producer. All of us did for many years, and it's like, is the $2.35? I mean, the $2.35 versus $1.90, and we're talking now, 55 cents or 45 cents. That's a significant amount of money when you're buying like a container load. But in the overall scheme with the pricing, is it really that big of a deal? I don't know. So, yeah, you can definitely find similarly enjoyable natural processed coffees from Ethiopia next door, essentially, that are, going to, deliver something very similar. Not the same, the aging of the process, the aging coffee and the coffees is very different. Now, why is it so expensive? Part of the reason is because, production is smaller. Part of it's because, it's difficult to get out of the country because of the war and all this kind of civil war. There's civil war and external war with Yemen, right? Yemen's been somewhat at war with Saudi Arabia for some reason for quite a while. They have their own civil war internally, and, they want to attack, they're upset with how the Palestinians are being treated, so they want to attack, Israeli flagships in the Red Sea. So they've got a lot of things happening in their country. But the other part of it is that, Yemeni coffee is also in very high demand. Like we talked about this on previous shows where, The Middle East and Middle Easterners love natural processed coffee. They love it. That's culturally, historically what the coffee they've been drinking for their existence. So natural processed coffees, especially the ones from Yemen, are high demand. Like Saudi Arabia buys so much of their production and is willing to pay serious money for it that, it does make Western buyers like, whoa, like $18. And this is something we find, like, wherever we go, like Western buyers, and I wonder if it's because of our capitalistic mentality, right? We want to buy low, sell high. But if we had to buy high, and we want to buy low, we want to have the best quality, but we want to have a low price. Which works, which is great for exploitation, right? We can exploit, Westerners, Western countries have exploited that tremendously over the last 300 years. But the difficult part comes when, like, you run up against, like, Saudi buyers in let's say Yemen, or in Central America or South America, and you're running up against, Asian buyers, East Asian buyers, like buyers from Japan, Korea, South Korea, Chinese buyers. Like, these guys are like, I don't really understand what they're doing, right? Because I come from a Western background and mentality, but like, these guys are coming to knock your lights out and get the best coffees. And for them, it's kind of like, whatever the price is, we want the best. And evidently, there's a market for them in their countries because they're selling the coffees. And I don't think they're selling them at a loss. Like, here in America, you buy a coffee for like $18, or maybe I should only sell it for $2, $2 a cup. You're like, dude, you're killing yourself. You're killing yourself, right? Like, one of my friends, he's selling a product that I was helping him calculate the cost. I'm like, dude, you sell this product, you're losing $5 a bag. It's like, you're losing $5 every time you sell this product. What are you doing, man? He's, I didn't realize it. Yeah, you need to, like, raise your prices. So, these are factors that are at play, driving the cost of the Yemeni coffee. Right? So if you want to engage in Yemeni coffee and you like the Yemeni coffee, I mean, the reality is that if you want it, you're going to have to pay a good price. Now, there's always that thought, like, in more modern Western times, let's say coffee third wave times, right? The question is always like, okay, we'll pay more, but we want to have the belief that the benefit to the producer is higher, right? Like, if we pay more money, we want to know the producer's making more money. And I think that the theoretical story that we're telling to our customers, to the end user, to the public, is the American dream, right? We pay more money to farmers so that their children can get out of what they're doing, right? As though it's not a good pursuit, right? Can they generationally escape this poverty? I think that's really the message that we as American coffee companies are trying to sell with this idea of helping the farmer. I think that's the message. Now, does it do that? I don't think so. Does it do that in Yemen? I don't think so either, right? They've got so many issues that they're working with that, will it change? I don't know. But the question is, does it need to change? Do they want it to change, right? Do they need to have, maybe they enjoy generationally producing coffee. I don't know. Perhaps the key is that if they do get more money out of higher prices, which I don't know if that even happens, I think that to my mind, the idea that they can then do what they want to do, right? They don't have to necessarily get out of coffee or get out of farming. They could be farmers and be happy. And I think that's a luxury that would be well worth, at least to my mind, well worth it. Kiana says natural processed Colombian blend, geisha, Colombia, Cine Cafe, Pacamara, Catura, passion fruit, almond, chocolate, Tolima region, 1600. Oh, we're talking about the coffee that he had. Okay, gotcha. Nice. I like that. That sounds good. Some people want that rare stuff, says Prevalent, but why though? I think, I think there are some nice coffees that come and you like it, right? So if you enjoy it, I always think it's like, if you enjoy it and it's an amount of money that you're willing to pay, then how is that a bad thing, right? Even though, I think a lot of us will see value in certain things that others may not, and others will see certain value in things that we may not. For example, let's say like there's the luxury bag company that's kind of gotten a lot more attention. Goyard, right? Goyard is a very fanciful bag company from France, if you're not familiar, and they've got nice designs. I actually kind of like them. And my friend, when we were hanging out in Tokyo last time, he's like, "Look," I said, "Ooh," I'm like, "Oh, where'd you get that from?" He's like, "Because he works in high fashion, so he has a lot of connections to get all this kind of stuff." And I was like, "Oh, dude, where did you get that?" And I was like, "How do I get one of those? Those are kind of sexy, but wildly expensive, right?" Other people, even myself, I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to run out and buy it. But if you see value in it, like the other day, I was with my nieces, right, and they wanted to go to the mall, and there's a new store at the mall that's selling Labubu. If you're not familiar with Labubu, well, then you're kind of square, right? I was square until about 2 weeks ago. But Labubu are these toys, kind of like a Tamagotchi kind of thing, but not the game Tamagotchi, but they're like little companions that have like clips on them and little fuzzy, like stuffed animals about this big. Well, the red one's about this big. And you buy them in these boxes, right? They're individually boxed and they're unmarked. Well, they're not unmarked, but they're kind of like mystery boxes, surprise boxes. So, and they've got a whole collection of Labubus that you can buy. And so you just buy the box and you hope that you get the right Labubu. Actually, one of my nieces, she did get the right Labubu. She was super, super, super happy about it. But I was like, huh. And people wait in line. Like, this store had opened not too long before we had gone there. Maybe a couple of days before. Actually, 2 days before. Friday. We went there on Sunday. Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. We walked in. And I didn't think any of it. We walked in and there was nobody there at the moment we walked in. Now, there was some ropes, those like club ropes outside. And the tension ropes, not the velvet ropes. That would have been pee, but what can you do? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't really think anything about it. This is my first time learning about Labubu. But then I saw one of my friends whose wife loves this stuff, right? His wife is all about it, right? And he was like, he posted pictures on his Instagram that he was in line at this same store the 2 days before for 3 hours waiting to get it. I was like, I told my niece, but I was thinking, man, if I had to wait 3 hours, forget it. I wouldn't be waiting 3 hours. I'd be like those parents just sitting at the arcade, which I was at one point, sitting at the arcade like lounge, in the booth, reading my phone because I'm just waiting for the kids to do whatever they need to do. It's like, oh. But Labubu is kind of so some people love Labubu and they'll spend money on it. And like there was a cool Labubu, like a huge one on the ceiling, on the wall. They were on display. I was like, "Ooh, that is awesome! How much is that?" And I was like, "Ooh, $350. Forget it." I was like, "Forget it. I'm not buying that." Powerplant says, "I like blends. Consistency is king." Oh, that is a tough one. That's a tough one. And respect to the rare times when I get my hair blown back by the single origin, but blends are my jam. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. Powerplant says, "A good story can upsell coffee by 75%. I like that too. Paige says, "They're so pointless, consumerism." Well, I mean, I think that if people enjoy it, it's all right. We can't like hate on people's like pleasure, right? Unless it's like, pleasure, they're deriving pleasure from the pain of others. Okay, that's different. And the trends of youth are always funny. I mean, we all have trends. Like when we were young, or I'm presuming that all of us are kind of old. But when I was young, we had our things, right? That was important to us. For me, when I was young, Doc Martens were a big thing. I had to have my Doc Martens. I used to get them from a place in New York City called 99X in kind of like the West Village, just a couple blocks south of St. Mark's Place. This British woman had a shop. Like, you had to go under a building and like weave your way back. It was really like you had to be in the know. Like, this was like way before Doc Martens were ever in the United States. And every quarter she would fly to the UK, buy a whole ton of like Docs and bring them back. And so she had like such an eclectic collection, and she was the only place. She was the only place at the time that had it. And like, I think Commander Salamander in DC had some, but it was very, very limited. Like just the black stuff. But this woman, she brought in everything. She brought all the great stuff. It was great. You're like, she brought those. She brought Creepers. She brought John Fluvogs. So when you're young, you have all kinds of predilections for collections. Kenny says Labubu is big in Thailand. Oh, I believe it. Got popular because Lisa, who is Thai from Blackpink, has. Oh, yeah, for sure. And anything that Lisa does. Actually, I'm surprised I don't know about Labubu, but Lisa has it. All right. I heard that Blackpink is no longer together. Is that right? They didn't renew their contracts. So Lisa, Jennie, Jisoo, and Rosé are on their own now, doing separate things. I'm kind of sad. I would like to have seen them in concert. Powerplant says, just let people go ham. Beanie Babies. Oh, go ham. Beanie Babies, Pokemon cards, Tickle Me Elmo, Tamagotchi, Furbies. They're no doubt. And patients, they're probably more obsessed over by adults. Oh, that could be the truth. That could be the truth. All right, let's have a look at the coffee here. We've been talking about the coffee for God knows way too long, and probably come to an hour and then never have tried the coffee. So this is the Yemeni Northern Crown from Khulani. It's a natural processed coffee roasted by Matt for this event. Okay, there it is. There it is. A little bit darker than yesterday's coffee, like even in person. It's a little bit like yesterday's coffee. The Indian Mysore Nuggets was the lightest roast of the four. This is, a little bit past that, a little more towards medium. So should be kind of interesting. Let us get our stuff here. $24.1 again. And let's bring in our grinder for grinding pleasure. Okay, now we got our coffee ground. We're going to use the same setup we've been using for this entire series. So the cafe flower dripper with the Abaca coffee paper filters. Fold over the edge, of course. And let's go back to tearing our scale. Keone says that it's not only the young people that are steady. Oh, no doubt. But I mean, like I said, my friend, he's a year older than me. And, his wife is a year younger than me, actually. So, they're, my age, old people, and they're waiting in line for it. Did I do that correct? Oh, yeah, 349, 240, 24.1. Good. Good. Now it's time to get our water out. Power Plant says adult chase. There's nothing wrong with chasing youth. Nothing wrong with feeling like you want to recapture those days of yore. I think the key is not to be lost in it, right? Like one of my friends, he's very much like into the 80s. He's very much into, not necessarily into the 80s, but he's very much into reminiscing about when we were young. And I'm like in our high school days. And I'm like, dude, and I never say anything to him, but I'm always like, man, like, I don't really care about those times. Like, they were fun. I had a good time. I hated high school overall. I just thought a lot of people were just a bag of you know what. But I don't really recall like all like he talks about the things we did, and I was like, it sounds awesome. Like it sounds like a great time, but I have no recollection of that actually happening. It's kind of crazy. But I wonder, it's almost as though like nothing exciting has happened to him since. And the guy is like also very successful, professional, family, kids. They're all very good kids. Wife is great. It's like, man, I just never really like, and I know a lot of people like look at their high school years as their glory years, but I always kind of felt like life got better after. All right, so we're rolling along, as you can see here. 160, 170, 180, 120, 130. I'm liking this grind setting. We're at the 7 and plus 1 notch past 7, going towards the course. So I'm finding that our timing is really, really great. But I'm thinking, I think we had good results when we were at the 6 as well with other coffees. And I'm wondering how much, at this moment, I'm just wondering now how much of that is also being impacted by the filter. Like, is the filter, are other filters providing more flow? Oh, is this one? I don't know. I don't have answers. That just these are just hypothetical thoughts that comes into mind. Curie says no real bloom. It seems. What I find is that coffees will have a lot of bloom. A lot of the bloom is because of that CO2. So once you've got a coffee that's well past your degassing stage, you're not going to have that much blooming. I do think that sometimes, we place a little bit too much emphasis on the idea of bloom. Because if you think about it, we could have coffees that are quite a bit past the bloom phase, the CO2 degassing. And let's say we pull it as espresso, it's still going to give us great crema. Right? Not that those two are necessarily correlated. Oh, we're running low on power too now. Okay, gotta recharge. Kiana says, I was in New Zealand and Taiwan when Blackpink was in concert. They sold out huge football, European. Oh, man. See, I would like that. I would like to go to a Blackpink. When I found out they were at Coachella, I was like, oh, should I go to Coachella? Like, can I still go? And then I watched the video from Coachella. I was like, oh, they were awesome in Coachella. Okay, so here's our coffee. It's pretty much finished. 347. So good, we're finished. That's 347. Somewhere between 3:30 and 4 minutes is like what I consider to be the ideal brew time. So let's take this off. Toss it out. Excellent. And now we have our coffee. All right, so what are we saying here? We're saying, what did the notes say? We're not going to look at the notes. We're just going to taste. Here's the elixir, nice and clear. it feels a bit tight, like almost like a. The first thing I thought was that it was kind of bitter, but I don't know if I would say it's bitter, but it feels tight. The flavor is tight. The character is tight. There's a light berryness deep down inside that tightness, that kind of bitterness. It's like, when I say tight, you probably wonder, like, what does this tight mean? But imagine there's a bouquet of flavors. And you kind of have this impression that there could be a bouquet of flavors. But it's almost as though, quite literally, someone has taken twine and wrapped them together tightly like that. It's kind of like everything all at once, right? So it's not really open and discernible, like, oh, this is this, and this, and these are different components. It's just kind of like all together. That's kind of the best way that I can describe what I'm experiencing at the moment. I wonder if it's because it's warmer, and maybe as it cools, it will become more expressive. Like, even at that last sip just now, there's a black tea-like flavor that kind of came out of it. Almost like a Kongu style tea. And I only use the Kongu because it's a tea that I'm familiar with, because I've been drinking a lot of it over the last couple of years. And I have run out, and I don't have any more. Very distressed about that. Acerbic, says Power Plant. Add a little hot water. All right, let's try a little hot water. We're going to try a little hot water. That's helped a little bit, yeah. A little dilution then, says Kent. See, you guys, great minds. That definitely has helped more expressiveness. Maybe there's a citrusy, not citrusy, but kind of like, not a citrusy flavor, but if you imagine the qualities of a citric type of brightness, there's some of that. It's a tight natural. Like, you know, what I always want to find in naturals is heavy blueberry. Like, if I have heavy blueberry, I think I'll be very pleased. One of my friends described some coffee. He's like, if it tastes like Robitussin, I don't really like it. And I was like, if it tastes like Robitussin, I might like that coffee. All right, so let's have a little bit more. Let's try a little bit more and see what happens. Just don't call it tannic. Oh, coffee is just whiskey. Just don't call it. Gotcha. No, I wouldn't say this is tannic. Did I say it was tannic? Let's put a little bit more water. A little more bypass for you guys. Anton says, I have a friend who is into whiskey, and it was super easy for him to get into coffee. Oh yeah. Especially when you're you know, if you're one of those whiskey guys that sit around thinking about, like, oh, how do we wax poetic about our flavors? Then I think very easy to get into coffee. And I think anything, and I know some people get a little bit like intimidated. I think intimidated is the best way to describe it. They get intimidated by all the descriptors, but I don't think you necessarily have to be intimidated by it or bothered by it. I mean, it's just another way of enjoying it. That is no greater than someone that sits around drinking the coffee and just being like, I really like the flavor. I really love the flavor. You don't have to, like, necessarily be able to sit there and identify, well, I like the flavor because of this aspect of it. Who cares? Do you like it? Do you enjoy it? Is it happy? Does it make you happy? That's all that matters. Speaking of happy, I thought we would pair something here because we haven't paired anything a little bit. So my cousin, she made this. I was at her house yesterday, so she made these blueberry muffins, and she always makes nice quality baked goods. Like, her cookies are very good. She didn't have any cookies. She had these blueberry muffins, so they're homemade. I don't know if she used. I didn't ask her anything about it. I don't know if she used fresh blueberries or frozen blueberries. There's arguments for both, right? But look at that, nice and chock full of blueberries. Muffin has no top. We're not worried about the muffin top so much. But very moist. Like I don't know if you can see this, but it's very moist. Like my fingers are sticky to the side of the dough. But it's cooked through, so you can see it's cooked through. The crumb is nice and good. PowerPoint says, for the love of God, no more wine talk to describe. Anton says that he's awesome at sensory. See, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think as long as you're considering what you taste and you're used to considering what you taste, you can, I think transitioning across different passions is, at least to like be a describer of it, is very simple or relatively simple. Anton says, I like some leather shoe notes in my coffee. Nice, nice. Power Plant thinks that muffin top is life. I don't necessarily disagree. Now, Anton wants to eat it. Well, when you get free muffins, you don't really worry about those kind of things. If I'm making muffins, that's a big thing. Like the muffins that I make, I'm all about the top. Yeah, we were at her house last night because her brother's leaving. And I was like, I'm taking one of those home with me. I'm taking one of those home with me for my live stream tomorrow. Especially because I knew that we're doing the Yemeni coffee today. So I was thinking maybe there'll be some symbiotic characteristics. And, you know, like this is not a blueberry situation. But really, when it comes to nice pastry and nice coffee, it all will kind of work together regardless. Like, there's a little bit of sharpness to this, that like a little bit of that brightness. Maybe add a little more of the bypass to it. That's not perfect as a pairing, but you know what? It's close enough. And the blueberries, man, are really nice. All right. So, Papa says bypass brewing is key. I do like the results that we got by doing that today. All right, so tomorrow we're supposed to have an episode where we're going to be exploring this coffee. I wonder where I put it. You know, tomorrow it's going to be like 8:50, and I'll be like, "Where's that coffee? Where'd I put it? Oh crap! I left it somewhere. I better go look for it today." So you might have seen this past weekend's video that I released, where the week before, or maybe now it's 2 or 3 weeks ago, that I had accidentally dropped a load of green coffee into the almost finished roasted coffee while I was roasting, which basically destroyed 2 batches worth of coffee. So in the video on Saturday, I roasted them both together, you know, just to see what happened. And so now tomorrow we're going to take that coffee and we're going to see just what it tastes like. So should be interesting, I think, or maybe not, but it'll happen tomorrow. It'll happen tomorrow. And then we got some other stuff coming towards the end of the week. And I was thinking about this for maybe next week. I was thinking about doing an old coffee week. Like I find I find these old coffees and I'm thinking, you know what? Let's taste them all. Let's do a tasting every day and different coffee from a different roaster that's all old. Like it's just been sitting around and I've like totally forgotten about it. I just discovered a box that had all this coffee. I was like, oh. So old coffee week. I think we might do that. Burn tastes like burn and the melange roast. Oh, no, we're going to find out. We're going to find out. I'm thinking more like black and blue kind of coffee. Right, black and blue. We get some high notes, some low notes, maybe some baked. Power plant says it's going to be some oxidized, free. I hear you. All right, so Hope you guys have a wonderful night or day or wherever you happen to be in the world. Back again tomorrow with another episode of the Coffee Q&A with some maybe interesting coffee, maybe terrible coffee. Let's find out together. All right, see you then.